My beautiful soul tribe. So these oracle messages and the healing messages have kind of turned into my soul tribe readings. So I'm happy to be back doing those. When I was setting up or when I was getting ready for this reading, I started feeling phoenix energy. So, I looked like I was on fire. My eyeballs turned red. I was called to choose this card for you for this reading, Phoenix energy. So Phoenix energy is, for me, it is about learning karmic lessons, right? Ending karmic cycles. And it's about, burning and burning and burning yourself again, right? Repeating the same pattern, not learning a lesson. So it's like you keep sticking your hand in the fire and you keep getting burned, you keep getting burned, you keep getting burned until you learn that lesson. And then you transcend that obstacle, you learn the lesson, you rise like the phoenix. Very powerful energy. It's one of my favorite energies. So I wanted to choose this card for you today, and I'm going to read about this card. And then I have a new deck about archetypes. So, I'm very into healing, especially the wounds that we've been talking about from that book, The Sacred Shadows. And recently someone mentioned to me the archetypes of the child and the different archetypes of the child. And I've become fascinated with it because it's not just about the wound we have, the neglect wound, the rejection wound, all the wounds we talk about in this book. This allows us to dig a little deeper and figure out where the wound came from what age. I'm studying about age mapping. So when this trauma happens, what age you are, how it affects you. And again, I've just become fascinated with it. It's my special interest. I think for a few years now, healing has been my special interest, autistic. But I'm actually, I'm learning a lot and I want to start integrating this into my readings. So although I'm still studying these archetypes, I did get a book about the archetypes, and I've seen this deck before, but I never felt called to get it. And this deck not only explains the child archetypes, but all the archetypes. So I'm very fascinated with all that right now. And I mentioned yesterday in a reading, I'm writing a book. And I've always wanted to write a book, right? And I know some of you have said, I believe in you, you can write that book. Some of you have been very encouraging. But given some of the difficulties that I've been through, some of the learning disabilities I have really held me back. And now I know I was just waiting for the right thing to write about. And anyway, it's something I'm going through right now. It's very beautiful because, again, I didn't have the confidence to feel like I could write a book. And one of the things that I'm trying to do is, as someone with ADHD and somebody who has dyslexia and difficulty reading, I do find some books really difficult to digest. So I'm also trying to lay out this book for people who are like me, and struggle with a lot of information, a lot of words. So anyway, that's what I'm kind of working towards in my spare time. And with the ultimate intention of, it started off, I was going to write it for me, right? And I was going to use it as a guide in my healing readings because I talk about healing in depth in all of my love readings, right? And to me, that's my mission. And I'm someone who's learning that it's like our wounded child, right? Actually, that's an archetype, the wounded child. But it's like the trauma and the wounds that we develop from age 0 to 20, I think it is. It affects the way we show up in relationships. It affects what we're willing to put up with. It affects where we get stuck. And I am someone who believes that relationships that are in our lives, whether they're friendships, family ships, romantic relationships, it's like our wounded child is trying to heal itself. And, it reminds me of the Phoenix energy. So this book is again, I'm nowhere near done to being, I'm nowhere near done this book, right? But it's about the inner child. And it feels like that is kind of what my passion is, healing the inner child, helping other people heal their inner child. And we can do that by learning these lessons from connections and healing that inner child and finding ourselves again. Love isn't love from a friend, love from a romantic partner, money, your job, unless it's your mission, is not supposed to bring you happiness. That happiness is supposed to come from within. And a lot of people, myself included, searching for it outside of themselves. And it's so important to find that love within, to heal yourself, right? So that you can call in healthier relationships, so that you can call in healthier friendships, so that you don't take yourself for granted. Anyway, I'm very passionate about it. So thank you, Spirit, for guiding me to write that book, because I was talking to my friend about it, and she said she's heard of this phenomenon where people just enter this flow state when they're writing. And that's kind of what happened to me. It started out that I was just kind of journaling about it. And then all of a sudden, I was writing about it, really free flowing writing. It was like somebody else had taken over my body. And, I lost complete sense of time. I think I was doing it for 4 hours, and I didn't even realize it had been 4 hours. And my partner came in and he's like, "You've got that crazy look in your eyes." He didn't mean it badly. And I said, "That's my soul spark lit up." I'm very excited about it, and I'm learning a lot about myself with the hopes of helping other people learn about their inner child and how healing your inner child is so important. And like that person said who told me about the archetypes, it's not just about healing these wounds. It's about, for me, it's about following this age mapping, following it back to where the wound started, not just healing the wound itself. Anyway, I'm completely fascinated with it. And I've been talking about that, about how some of us who are spiritual we struggled in school, right? And I always thought I was intelligent, and it turns out I'm very intelligent when I'm learning about the thing I want to learn about. Anyway, I have a lot of, I admire the people who watch these readings, right? The people who want to heal. I really admire you for that. So I'm going to keep making these messages, right? So Phoenix energy. So that's the reason I'm using the Archetype deck today. It's the first time I'll be using it. And this is supposed to be your daily message, right? But I'm going to pull a few Archetype cards. And, keep in mind that if you resonate with one of these shadow attributes of the archetypes, it's not that you're a bad person. It's not that you should feel shame for it. If you feel triggered by it, it could be that you have an unhealed wound about it. A lot of us, people who aren't yet ready to look within, have a hard time hearing about this kind of stuff, right? Anyway, the Phoenix. Freedom from suffering, past karma, reincarnation. The Phoenix. Right? We're done suffering. This life is too short to spend it suffering and hating ourselves. Seriously. And chasing someone else, chasing love, chasing happiness outside of ourselves. It's right in here. We just need to know where to look. My nose keeps running, so maybe maybe some of these things you've been running from, right? I was running from them my whole life. Hang on. All right, the Phoenix. The Phoenix represents the transformation of our past. It doesn't mean running from it. Runny nose. I uplift myself with my vast amount of self-love. That's your affirmation that just popped down. It doesn't mean running from it, denying it, or burning bridges with rage. The Phoenix employs an advanced technique described in yoga as the burning of impurities through practice and dedication. The essence of the Phoenix is with us. Blocked throat chakra. Do you have a blocked throat chakra? Do we need to talk about that wound? Blocked throat chakra? I've definitely struggled with a blocked throat chakra myself. An energetic imbalance affecting self-expression, the communication, and the ability to speak one's truth, often caused by fear of judgment, past invalidation, or suppression of personal voice. This wound manifests as difficulty expressing thoughts and emotions, fear of confrontation, or feeling unheard and misunderstood. Some may struggle with speaking up in relationships, holding back opinions and desires due to fear of rejection or conflict. Others may feel pressure to filter or alter their words to please others, resulting in a loss of authenticity. There may be an internalized belief that their voice doesn't matter, or that expressing emotions leads to negative consequences. Emotionally, this wound can create cycles of silence, resentment, or over-explaining to feel understood. Physically, it may manifest as chronic throat tension, sore throats, jaw clenching, or thyroid imbalances. Over time, an unresolved throat chakra blockage can result in passive communication, difficulty setting boundaries, or a fear of public speaking and self-advocacy. Watch for patterns of withholding thoughts, struggling to find the right words, or feeling emotionally suffocated by unspoken truths. 222 on the timer. Runny nose, right? So I feel like I've spent a lot of my life running from all this wounding I have, running from that blocked throat chakra, all of it, running from learning how to love myself. All right. And healing has been the greatest gift in my life. And I had to go through a lot, but it's truly been the greatest gift in my life. And I'm hearing that song, The Greatest Love of All, again. You are the love of your life. You've just forgotten, right? And that's what I hope for the people who are drawn to the healing parts of my reading, that you start to heal yourself and you don't sacrifice your own healing for chasing love or staying in unhealthy dynamics or unhealthy job situations or unhealthy friendships out of fear of being alone, right? And when you rise like the phoenix, what happens? You start transcending, and you leave behind. It can be very hard because you leave people behind. Not that you want to, but they're not ready to transcend. Maybe they're not ready to transcend in this lifetime, right? Maybe they're still running from what they need to heal. So it can be a lonely journey, right? I was talking to one of my friends about the hermit energy. The shadow of the hermit energy is feeling lonely, feeling like you don't have anyone, which you go through when you start healing, right? Especially if you're around people who aren't ready to heal. Your healing can trigger them, or you can outgrow them energetically. And I was talking about this, about how that is shadow or distorted hermit energy, where you feel isolated, where you feel alone, where you feel like nobody cares about you. And it's in that hermit energy that you're supposed to find yourself, that you're supposed to embrace yourself, self-reflection, soul introspection, finding your path. And when the hermit energy is in balance, in light, You love your own company, right? And that doesn't mean we don't get lonely. I'm not saying that, oh, it's okay if you're alone, you don't need love. Of course, we all want love in our lives, but it begins with us. And when that hermit energy is in light, we're comfortable looking at our shadows. We're comfortable being alone. We learn how to love ourselves. So important. Where was I? So, the essence of the phoenix is with us when we realize we have been suffering too long and something must change. We take a stand and decide to live consciously instead of being driven by the unconscious mind and its long list of fears and aversions. At that very moment, the spark of the phoenix is lit and the great bird helps us burn through our baggage. We no longer run from who we are, what has happened to us, or what we have done. 555, positive change. If you want to change a situation, is what I'm hearing, change yourself. The stuckness and dead weight fall into the ashes, and a lightness and clarity emerge. As the stagnancy continues to smolder, the phoenix lifts our spirits up and up, and we begin to recognize ourselves again. We may catch a glimmer in our eye that wasn't there before. Look closely. It's a sign that the fire of transformation is upon your wings. That's my wish for everyone, this phoenix energy. Healing wounds. Healing my inner child. The best thing I've ever done in my life, including having my kids. All right. So if you're still here, you're clearly on the healing journey, right? All right. So, archetypes. Don't be afraid. And it's okay to admit if you have these things, right? Again, I was having another conversation with my partner. My partner has gotten very into healing recently. It started with my addiction video. Before that, he had never watched my readings. And when I did that addiction video, I said, I want you to watch this because he endured a lot through my addiction. And I was in tears this morning because I was having a conversation with him about, how badly I treated him years and years ago. How badly I treated him when I was struggling with addiction, even after I healed my addiction, and it's a lifelong journey, how bad I treated him within our relationship. And, blamed him. And it was all coming, I talked about it in the projection video. At the time, I don't know why I'm telling you all this. At the time, I thought it was true to me, right? But looking back, it was almost like I was the runner. I was pushing him away. I was blaming him. I explained to him this morning that growing up, right, I struggle with a neglect wound. The parentified child, I struggle with that anyway. And I really did, he was so nice to me and so loving, and I couldn't see it. And again, I talk about the abandonment wound, and I talk about the fear of intimacy, right? Runners. And I started realizing that I was that person. I had a fear of intimacy. So, this caring, nurturing energy that he was showing me, King of Cups, it scared me, and I self-sabotaged. And in the moment, I had no idea I was doing it. I constantly would try and run. Maybe that's why my nose is running. And it's not until very recently that I had this epiphany, right? Oh my gosh, I was avoidant. I self-sabotaged. I had a fear of intimacy. Like, all this time I've talked to you guys about dealing with people with a fear of intimacy. I was coming from the mindset of a chaser. I was coming from the mindset of an anxious attachment. And I have those things too. But I just didn't realize that for many, many years, I was the avoidant. I was the runner. And I'm not talking about counterparts when I'm saying this, right? And it wasn't until I completely sabotaged that connection, right? I ran from it, that I then turned into the anxious attachment, the people pleaser, the overgiver, the one who was like giving that love to the wrong people. And looking back, I can see how he had the wound of a blocked throat chakra, fear of putting up boundaries. He enabled all of my wounds and bad behavior. And again, that's not anything that I hold against him or judge him for, but I find it very interesting how energy works, right? Because I went from being that person to then experiencing what he experienced with me, karmic lessons. And it's only now that I'm building, like I've really been working on building a more secure attachment style. So like the friends I've made, again, I don't know why I'm telling you any of this. It's a soul tribe reading. That's probably why. It wasn't until I also believe that healers, by sharing their experience, the people who resonate with them, the healer can help them. So never feel like you shouldn't share your experience. People will tell you, like, when you talk about yourself, F you, go away if you don't want to hear it, right? Phoenix energy, look, on my left side, feminine energy. Look at it. Only on my left side. Divine feminine. I am a divine feminine. What was I saying? Oh, right, secure attachment. So now the friendships that I have, right? If they go quiet, I no longer feel like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? What did I do? I must over-message them and people please. If I go quiet, I hope my friends, those of you who, like I've been emailing, my bestie, Michelle, when I go quiet, because we're on the same frequency, they know it's nothing to do with them. It's about me. And secure attachment, I had to go from like one extreme to the other before I could find that secure attachment and learn those lessons. But anyway, it's like kind of everything I did to my partner, then I learned those lessons and I was able, like, again, I was in tears this morning, not because I had never apologized to him or realized these things, but in the past, I had a hard time. I was brought up in a house. This is not even the daily oracle message. This is a soul tribe reading. I grew up in a house where there was no conflict resolution. Any conflict still is swept under the carpet. We don't talk about it. We wait until the dust settles. People are sick of slamming doors and being in silence, and then we talk again. And we never bring up what happened. We don't talk about it, right? Like Harry Potter. We don't mention him. Like whoever, what's his name? Voldemort, is that right? Anyway, clearly I'm going through a transition here. But what started off as a mission for love, right? Love readings, has blossomed into healing And that's where we learn those lessons. Those are the opportunities that show us what we need to work on, what we're running from. Anyway, I'm just very grateful for it all, right? So, archetypes, and these can be triggering, and it's okay if you're triggered by them. It's completely okay. My suggestion for you, right, is if you are feeling triggered in the moment when you're hearing these things, this is something I'm writing about. I don't know why I'm holding that up. If in the moment when we're talking about wounds or archetypes, what do we got? The saboteur, the self-sabotage. I just cut open the deck. So if you feel triggered when you're listening to this, or you're reading a healing book, even that shadow book, right? That is not, like, if you're feeling triggered and you feel that self-protection go up, ground yourself. Don't continue reading about it. Don't continue listening until that threat, right? That feeling like you're being threatened, or that flight, fight. I know there's multiple flight, fight, freeze, fawn. Until that moment passes, right? Because if you're feeling triggered, that might not be the time to look at that wound or reflect about it, because we're in a heightened state. And when we're in a heightened state, our self-protection, our armor goes up. So again, if you're feeling triggered by any of this, pause it. Watch it when you're feeling more centered. But yeah, all the things I'm writing about right now. So the saboteur, let's just look at it. The light attribute. So this reminds me of the Five of Swords, self-sabotage. The way we learn to stay safe in childhood, right? So for me, it was staying silent, walking on eggshells, reading energy, anticipating moods, never sharing my feelings, never bringing up conflict. I ended up, because of these things that I learned to protect myself with as a child, this is how I describe the Five of Swords. It's how we protected ourselves. It's how we protected our wounds. But then we carry that into our connections and we end up self-sabotaging. So, light attribute highlights your fear of self-empowerment and the changes it would bring to your life. So, this is what I'm talking about, self-empowerment, right? And a lot of people with wounding struggle to self-empower themselves. Think about the throat chakra that I just read, right? Fear of putting up boundaries, fear of advocating for yourself, fear of speaking your truth and being rejected or abandoned. And again, all of these wounds come from these archetypes that I've been talking about. It's fascinating. Shadow attribute induces self-destructive behavior, right? Pushing people away. Addiction. Not staying in situations where we're being mistreated and we end up self-sabotaging ourselves. Or the desire to undermine others. And I believe that a lot of people, in my opinion, self-sabotage comes from wounds. And by healing those wounds, you stop self-sabotaging yourself. You stop getting in your own way. Where am I? Like I said, connection with my partner. I completely self-sabotaged and I had no idea I was doing it. And these are all the things that I'm teaching my kids, right? When they're self-sabotaging, I say, you're self-sabotaging, right? You're the only one being hurt right now. Anyway, the saboteur. exposes fears and issues related to low self-esteem that cause you to make choices that block your own empowerment and success. When you make it an ally, you will find that it calls your attention to situations in which you're in danger of being sabotaged or of sabotaging yourself. Shadow saboteur manifests as self-destructive behavior or the desire to undermine others. Everyone has an archetype. 1987 could be symbolic, or August 7th, July 8th. I like that I cut out, like, that's a perfect card to cut open to in this reading. So let's see. All right. So, I'll get as many cards as Spirit wants me to get. Maybe you won't resonate with these, but you'll recognize where you came across someone with this archetype that was in shadow. I find that I resonate with a lot of them, right? I've been through different stages where I resonate, again, with different energies. While I was anxiously attached, chasing, self-sabotaging, fear of putting up boundaries, accepting less than I deserved, afraid to share my voice, I thought that was my attachment style. And then once I healed that, it made me realize that before I was that, I was the runner. I was the avoidant. And you know what? Those come from the same wounds. It just, we act from that wound differently. So just because you heal the wound of anxious attachment, you might realize that you also still have this wound when it comes to avoidance or running. Even, running from your mission, running from self-love, right? I was chasing love and running from self-love. I was running from my wounded child who was just trying to heal. I hope I'm making sense. I'm making sense to the right people. But that energy, don't know what archetype it connects to right now. Maybe the wounded child. Anyway, I'm learning about it. Both of those energies, anxious attachment, anxious avoidant, chasing, running, comes from a fear of abandonment. It comes from the same wound. It's just we act in different ways. 222 here in the afternoon. All right. So I'm going to cut the deck and then we'll see what's saboteur. That's an important one, right? That's what I've been talking about, self-sabotage. All right, so we have the student. That's really interesting because remember I talked about learning. I deserve to live a life I love. That's your affirmation. So the student, humility and devotion to knowledge, openness to lifelong learning. That's me. My student is in light right now, but I can already tell you in the past, it was in the darkness. Shadow attribute, arrogance in the pursuit of destructive knowledge, unwillingness to translate knowledge into action. Interesting. All right, so again, there's nothing to feel shame about for these things. Think of it as a map, right? That's what I find in that sacred shadow book. That's what I'm finding with these archetypes. It's like you can map your way back to where it started and how to truly heal it. Instead of just repeating the same pattern, instead of hurting others, instead of hurting yourself. So what does my soul tribe need to hear? That came out so quickly. We have the mentor. It almost sounded like I said Dementor. Dementor, darkness. right? So in light, it's the mentor. In darkness, it's a dementor. I amuse myself. It's fine. The mentor, light attribute, passing on wisdom and refining a student's character. Shadow attribute, inability to allow the student to move on to the role of master, imparting false instruction. Interesting. That's on the bottom. But this is the card. We got the blank card, which I haven't filled in yet. My nose is running again. That's interesting. Clearly I need to work on that. So this deck comes with blank cards where you can fill in your own. Because what I'm finding by studying these archetypes is everybody has like a different system for them. But anyway, let's get an actual card. It's almost like Spirit's saying, maybe you don't know what archetype is sabotaging you, right? Or what archetype is still in shadow. All right, we have Queen. I love it. Oh, we have the orphan, child archetypes. That's what I've been like learning about. It's mind-blowing. Light attributes, independence based on learning to go it alone, conquering fear of surviving. The Hermit, remember I talked about it. And you don't have to be an actual orphan to resonate with this, right? It's an energy. Shadow attributes, feelings of abandonment. And I just mentioned the abandonment wound. Do you see how magical this is? Feelings of abandonment that stifle maturation. Is that how you say it? Maturing. Seeking inappropriate surrogate families. That was me when I was young. Definitely me. Maybe you resonate with that. The Queen, light attributes. I love this. I love this. It's kind of like the Queen of Swords. Radiates the regal feminine, uses her benevolent authority to protect others. Shadow attributes, become arrogant when authority is challenged, controlling and demanding, right? So when authority is challenged, you become defensive, right? You feel like you know everything. That's really interesting. I know it's backwards for you. That's why I'm reading it. Oh, look! Oh, yes. I love magic, and I always love when we get the card that the person chose for the cover, right? Because, in my opinion, the card that the creator chose for the cover means something to them. It's probably their favorite image, right? Speaking of that, there is one of you that I'm going to reach out to about a cover from my book. All right, Queen. The Empress, Divine Feminine. Represents power and authority in women, but not gender, right? I don't want to assign gender. Because there's lots of men out there that resonate with the Divine Feminine. Let's not box us into gender here. Represents power and authority in people who symbolically rule over anything from a corporation to the home. Associated with positive arrogance and the need to protect one's personal and emotional power. It's on 84, which is the year I was born. That's magic. Shadow Queen can slip into aggressive and destructive patterns of behavior, particularly when authority or control is challenged. Right? Self-destructive behavior, aggression. I definitely resonate with that in my past. The Empress, Divine Feminine. Right? So that aggressiveness, it's actually a little bit of distorted masculine energy. And, although I haven't been that way for a while, that's what I used to do, right? When I would become aggressive with my partner, or if me and my friend were having a disagreement, there would be we would both be aggressive towards each other. The Queen. Empress energy, right? So the Empress energy, we'll talk about that. Lack of self-confidence, wanting to control things, wanting to control the outcome, not being able to release things even if it's unhealthy for you, allowing others to take the blame, not trusting your intuition. Divine feminine energy, trusting your intuition, compassion for others, self-love, not letting aggressive, toxic people, unhealthy situations into your energy, choosing yourself. All right, I like that came out. What else does my soul tribe need to hear? We have the engineer. Maybe some of you are an engineer. That's a good one. That's a good one on the bottom. And you know, like I said, you may resonate with having these shadows once in your life. Maybe you're healing them. Maybe you have some of them right now. You could even resonate with experiencing a connection with someone who had these shadow attributes. So, engineer, light attributes, ability to give creative energy a practical expression, talent for designing resolutions to common dilemmas. Shadow attribute, reliance on mechanistic solutions without regard for emotional consequences. That feels very logical, right? Very stuck in logic. And then we have the exorcist, light attribute, freeing yourself and others of destructive impulses. Destructive impulses, Knight of Swords energy, right? And I talk about Knight of Swords energy all the time. Other than the Empress and the Emperor and the High Priestess and the Strength card, oh my gosh. Listen, healing journey. There's a lesson in each of those major arcanas, right? But the Knight of Swords was a difficult one for me to heal, right? When triggered, very reactive, impulsive, hurtful words. Shadow attribute, fear of facing your own demons, right? And I was talking about that in the beginning. How so many people have a fear of facing their own shadows, that they self-sabotage, or they are in this destructive energy, right? Acting from a place of shadow unconsciously, destructing relationships. The exorcist. E could be symbolic. Today's reading was brought to you by the letter E. The shaman. Able to confront evil in the form of possession by destructive or antisocial impulses in oneself and others. Shadow exorcist attacks the evil in others without having the courage to face their own demons. That sounds familiar, right? So someone who can point out, here's everything that's wrong with you. You're the problem. Exactly what I described doing to my partner. But not looking at your own shadows. And that doesn't, like, again, I had a lot of shame around that when I was in that situation. I didn't see that it was happening. And then I went through a situation where, a few situations where then I had people telling me, this is everything that's wrong with you, but not wanting to look at their own shadows. Projection. Discern a lifelong pattern of exercising the negative spirits of social groups or individuals. All right, and the engineer. Architect, builder, designer. Grounded, orderly, strategic qualities give creative energy a practical expression. Talent for engineering everyday situations or designing solutions to common dilemmas. Shadow engineer manifests as a master manipulator. I was hearing like logical, right? I was seeing the queen, not the queen. Well, the queen or the king of swords, right? Someone who can be manipulative, someone who can be strategic, emotionally cold. So shadow engineer manifests as master manipulator, designing situations to one's own advantage, regardless of the needs of others. Look for patterns of designing and building structures, devices, or solutions. And again, a lot of the way these shadows show up as someone who, and you probably resonate with it, I was unconscious of them, right? Overgiving, people pleasing, I was unconscious of it. Pushing people away, right? Blaming my partner for the lack of my own self-love. I was unconscious of it in the moment. Child, internal, light attributes, determination to remain young in body, mind, and spirit, ability to see things with fresh eyes. Shadow attributes, inability to grow up and be responsible, extreme dependency on others for physical security. So dependence, right? Codependency. Again, it's that child within you, that wounded child. Let's get one more. I say one more, but who knows? One more. One of these came out again. Oh, I don't know how to say this one. Dilettante? Delights in the art, light attributes. Delights in the arts without having to be a professional. Alerts you of the danger of becoming superficial in your pursuits. Shadow attribute, pretension to much deeper knowledge than you actually possess. That's interesting. All right, what do we have here? Oh, the mentor came out again. So let's read that one. Mentor, master, counselor, tutor, teacher. Based on the character in the Odyssey to whom Odeus entrusted the care of his house and the education of his son. Trusted teacher and guide in many forms of art, business, and spiritual practice, passes on wisdom and refines the student's character. Shadow mentor is more concerned with imposing control than imparting wisdom, doesn't allow the student to move on to the role of master. Ask yourself if you've shown a lifelong pattern of taking individual students under your wing and guiding many aspects of their lives. That's interesting. It reminds me, I was watching, do you guys remember the program? It was like when I started watching it, it was 19 Kids and Counting. This reminds me, I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes of that show. Like, I know there was some like inappropriate stuff going on, right? But I always saw them as such a loving, happy family, and I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. So they had a mentor that was acting from a place of shadow, trying to control everyone, right? That's why, as a healer, I am so encouraging to other people taking this knowledge and having their own mission, right? Not clipping your wings. It reminds me of that video that I saw last week on social media where a healer was saying, you don't all have to be healers. Like, that's, if you all want to heal the world, go for it, right? We shouldn't be in competition with each other. I shouldn't be clipping your wings. I shouldn't be sitting here saying, you can't do that. That's why I encourage you guys. All right. Oh, I already read that. All right, I'm going to get 2 more. I just can't help it. 1 more. Addict. Thanks, Spirit. Thanks for calling me out. I am an addict. I'm a recovering addict. Light attribute helps you recognize and confront addictive behavior. Shadow attributes compromises integrity and honesty, allows an addictive pattern to have authority over your inner spirit. This one means a lot to me. And we have angel. Light attribute, helping those in need with no expectation of return. I love that. It gives me light worker energy, right? Shadow attributes, acting innocent and angelic to mislead others, falsely claiming to be in touch with angelic guidance. Well, I wasn't going to talk about this, but maybe I should. So, I don't believe in speaking badly about other light workers. I really don't. I don't feel any competition towards anybody who's reading tarot, healing, self-help. They're all doing their part to help heal the collective in the way that aligns with them. That's their mission. Again, the only time I felt competition with them was when I was lacking the courage to start my mission myself. I would compare myself to others. And I think it's a little bit concerning when you come across a light worker who's bashing other people, right? Or other light workers, or putting other light workers down. And again, I was talking with Michelle about this morning. But keeping that in mind, and again, this isn't to bash light workers, but there are people out there, I have one in my inbox, where, you know, someone is acting like a light worker or a psychic to get money from others, and they are out there. So you do need to be careful. Again, those ones are not actual light workers. So just little story. Another story. A few years ago, I got a reading from someone, not going to say who, not a tarot reader, but I saw an ad and I thought, good reviews, I thought, I'm going to try it. So I got a reading. And I mean, it was all right. But since then, this year specifically, I keep getting these emails in my inbox from this person. And it's clear, again, I'm not speaking badly about a light worker. I don't believe we should. And this isn't a person, okay? Let me be clear about that. This is an AI-generated person. Didn't know that because when I got a reading from them, it was before like AI was really big, right? It's AI generated. And so every day I'm getting these emails in my inbox, which I then blocked. So now they're in my spam. Today one got through to my inbox though. And it's full of like, it is a scam. It's full of fear. I got a message today from this AI thing. Again, not a light worker, it's AI. And it really, like, it was saying, you have opportunities coming to you, but you may miss them. And if you don't get this reading right now, you may like miss out on this chance forever and the door may close. So click here. I only have 3 spots left today. Get your answers. When I first got into tarot, I would get these emails in my inboxes of people like, and this is the thing. I was in a very vulnerable part of my life. And I would get these emails from psychics, from tarot readers. They'd they'd write me a message. I saw your profile picture. Someone has a message for you. Message me to find out what this message is, right? And that's like anything like that where you have someone actively pursuing you, telling you they have a message for you, pay them and they'll give you the message. That's a giant red flag, okay? And you know, again, I don't believe in putting other light workers down, but this is not like people like that, not actual light workers. Light workers shine their light and they allow people to find them, right? Like a lighthouse. They don't, like, imagine a lighthouse, right? You feel called to go see the lighthouse. You see the light, it pulls you in or whatever. The lighthouse doesn't uproot itself and come knock on your door and like, come look at my light. If you pay this much, I'll give you guidance. I'll give you answers. So please, for anyone just stumbling upon spirituality, tarot, even astrology, that kind of thing, you need to use your discernment. Anyway. And again, I feel as someone who was taken by something like that, right? That's why I feel so passionately about what I do, right? Anyway, be careful because it's reminding me of this, right? Helping those in need with no expectation of return, right? So all the readers you see, or the light workers you see around here putting content on YouTube, right? There's nothing wrong with them offering their services, offering readings, seminars, workshops, things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But just be careful, right? It's part of my gullible nature. I'm not going to talk about that today, Spirit. I'm not going to talk about that one. But there are some people out there with the shadow of the angel just wanting your money. So be careful, okay? All right. One more. Oh, we have mystic on the bottom. Light attribute, revels in intimate union with the divine. Beautiful. Feels at one with the universe, right? Trusts in the divine, channels the divine messenger, the mystic. Shadow attribute, delusional rapport with the divine, right? I saw your profile picture. Somebody has a message for you. Send me money to find out what the message is. Otherwise, you'll miss out on the chance you'll miss out on it forever, right? It's funny that I was just talking about that, the angel and the mystic, and I started talking about, you know, there's so many beautiful light workers out there. But there's also some wolves in sheep's clothing, if you get what I mean, out there. So just be careful, right? Somebody last night left a comment on one of my readings that be careful of these readers who just tell you what you want to hear. And I'm like, have you watched me? Like, that's not me. You know? Some of my most powerful love readings to me are the ones where, like, I'm brutally honest, right? Some of the most profound readings I've done are the ones where you have to be brutally honest and tell somebody to put up boundaries, or tell someone that this person isn't changing, their energy is stuck, right? And again, I don't want to put anybody down, right? Tarot readers have their own mission. Light workers have their own mission. We shouldn't be in competition with each other. that person actually had a page. And it was almost like they were advertising themselves in my comment section, right? Anyway, I am no longer triggered by such things. That's what happens when you heal, right? I used to be highly triggered by everything, like a wounded little animal, right? Or like I was full of these cuts, and if somebody touched me, I'd be like, ow, that hurt. Now I just laugh at them. Like somebody yesterday. You barely pulled any cards. Like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm channeling. Like, anyway, let's get one more. This is fascinating to me. You know? That one came out. Saboteur again. 3 times Saboteur came out. Femme fatale. Light attributes. Highlights the erotic energy of the feminine. Opens your heart when dependency is rejected. That's interesting. Shadow attributes. Inappropriate use of sensuality, attachment to money, and power. It's funny, I've been starting to, like, I've always watched Survivor, guilty pleasure. I used to, like, be embarrassed to admit that to people. Who cares what anybody thinks? I watch Survivor. But I've recently started watching it with 2 of my kids. And I don't know if you've watched it, but there's this player. Her name is, I can't say it. Her name is Parvati. And she was always using her sensuality, her beauty, her body, her flirting, right, to manipulate people in the game. And then when she comes back after she's had a child, she's completely different, which I find fascinating. But anyway, when my kids like say stuff about people like this, I remind them that's coming from a wound, that's coming from a shadow, and I try and help them understand where it's coming from. I find, though, opens your heart when your dependency is rejected, right? Codependency, anxious attachment. It feels like this could be like empowering yourself, right? When you, again, coming from a distorted feminine energy, phoenixing, you keep burning yourself. Anyway, this will be the last one. Get out of here, ego. Thank you. Sometimes my ego monster pops in and like whispers in my ear. It's almost like a little ego monster on this shoulder, an intuitive angel on the other. Sometimes my ego still sneaks into these and is like, shut up. Nobody wants to hear this. It's like, get out of here. Thank you for keeping me safe when I was younger, but I'm done with you now. I don't need your protection. So bugger off. Black Widow, flirt, siren, whatever that word is. CIRCE, seductress, enchantress. Represents highly refined skills at manipulating men both sexually and financially without investing personal emotion. Sometimes adds a twist of symbolically killing her conquests. Positive aspect manifests as opening the heart when the male object rejects her manipulation and dependency. Very like wounded feminine energy. Shadow femme fatale only wants to acquire more men and more money. Look for pattern of manipulative behavior and acquisitiveness, whatever that word is. Hi, I'm writing a book and I don't know how to pronounce words. Who cares? I just won't use those words in my book. Anyway, that's an interesting one. That might be the first one that I've never resonated with. That's interesting. Discernment, right? You learn how to be honest with yourself. Oh, I resonate with that. I resonate with that. I resonate with that. I resonate with the light attributes. Oh yeah, I can see where I was in the shadow attributes of that in the past, or where I still am. It takes discernment. Anyway, interesting. So, my friends, I'm going to leave it here. I am sending you lots of light and love. I don't even know what to call this reading. What do we call it? Exploring archetypes. That's what I'll call it. But yeah, thank you for being here. And your inner child thanks you for healing. And I'm proud of you. I honor my needs and desires. Another affirmation for you. Crazy. All right. I'm sending you lots of love and light, and I'll see you next time. Bye.